Good morning and good afternoon, NACCE members and friends. Thanks so much for joining our webinar today. My name is Leah Deppert. I'm the Manager of Marketing and Communications here at NACCE. Thanks so much for taking time out of your busy schedules to join us today. We're really excited to share with you a little bit more about teaching intellectual property content, reflections, and tips. We have some really excellent guest speakers today on the line with us from not only Santa Monica College, but also the Michelson Foundation as well too. Before we go ahead and get started with the content, I just wanted to go over some housekeeping items. Number one, this webinar is being recorded, so you'll receive both the slides and this webinar recording about 24 hours after it's complete. As well, we want you guys to be super engaged and ask as many questions and submit comments that you might have. So if you've never used GoToWebinar before, there's a question feature that you can type those questions in, and those will go directly to me. And we will have a dedicated Q&A time towards the end of this webinar, but I do encourage you to submit those questions as you think of them so you don't forget. As well, you can also type them into the chat box. Just know that the chat box can be seen by everyone. As well, if you're on Twitter, we encourage you to tweet your insights with us using the hashtag NACCE member webinar, as well as tagging NACCE. So today's discussion is all about intellectual property, and I'm really pleased that we've been able as an organization to partner with the Michelson Foundation over the past couple of years and work with them on this pilot project to really scale it to where it's at and continue to grow it. And we found just a great, one of our member colleges, Santa Monica College, has been doing an excellent job in building out the coursework and getting more faculty and schools on board with using this excellent open education resource. So a little background. If you didn't know this before, NACCE partnered with the Michelson Foundation, I believe it was already 3 years ago, to launch this intellectual property education pilot through our network of community colleges across the country. So it began in December of 2016, and we continue to expand it among our member colleges across the United States and Canada. So NACCE has a page on our website that kind of showcases our partnership with the foundation and with Santa Monica College. And so I just wanted to quickly show these are our current NACCE member users, and we hope to continue to grow this list and really preach the good michelsonip.com word so we can have a greater community as well. So with that being said, I'll go ahead and turn it over to the Michelson Foundation to give a little background on who they are and a little bit about the importance of IP.
Great, thank you, Leah, for the introduction. We're so grateful for our partnership with NACCE, and thank you so much for that intro. Thanks also to everyone who's joined us on the line today. My name is Jelani Adlam, and I'm a program manager at the Michelson 20mm Foundation. We're an education foundation based in downtown Los Angeles, and we're dedicated to investing in leading edge entrepreneurs, technologies, and initiatives that transform post-secondary education and help lead to meaningful careers. And the Michelson Institute for Intellectual Property, or Michelson IP, is one of our flagship initiatives. Since 2016, our vision has been to address critical gaps in the world of intellectual property. And our founder, Dr. Gary K. Michelson, is actually a prolific inventor in the medical space, and his career as an orthopedic surgeon propelled him to innovate to the tune of more than 950 patents worldwide. And so our goal here is really to arm the next generation of creators and inventors with the knowledge they need to capitalize on their innovations. So a few quick stats about IP. IP industries generate 38% of total US GDP and account for more than 80% of the market value of publicly traded companies. IP protected innovation is now really the principal driver of corporate value as well as national economic growth. And so why should we all care about this? Well, IP really touches everyone, businesses, creators, consumers, and of course our students. And over the last 50 years, almost every major new industry has been launched on the back of IP protected innovations. We're also seeing this trend of the rise of entrepreneurship as a study at US colleges and universities, which really presents a great opportunity for the study of intellectual property and how that fits into the entrepreneurship ecosystem as well. But we found that despite IP's undisputed economic importance today, very few of our colleges or universities really offer undergraduate courses on the basic workings or role of patents, copyrights, trademarks, and trade secrets in US social and economic life. And up until now, IP has been taught largely in law schools and the occasional business school seminar, with few undergraduates exposed to the topic of IP. So at Michelson IP, we've collaborated with some of the brightest minds in the field of IP to develop publisher quality, open educational resources, and all for free. So our foundational text is called The Intangible Advantage. It's the first ever popular text on IP written for ordinary citizens with no legalese vocabulary, and particularly with a focus on supporting undergraduate students. Our IP toolkit also includes our Basics of IP animated video series, an online educators portal with downloadable resources and modular curriculum that can be used on their own or plugged into an LMS. And we also have a self-paced course on Udemy. Our course on Udemy, Intellectual Property, Inventors, Entrepreneurs, and Creators, has been taken by nearly 9,000 learners and entrepreneurs individually. And it's also the best reviewed free IP course on the platform. So it consists of 38 modules that cover a range of intellectual property topics. And I also wanted to highlight a section of our website called Hot Topics in IP. These are topics that are also embedded into our ebook and course content, and they're articles and case studies that help ground IP understanding in some real world examples. So for example, can artificial intelligence machine get a patent or be sued? So we're now in over 150 colleges and universities in the US. They're using Michelson IP content in a range of courses. We gave some example courses here: business law, introduction to business, but also courses like introduction to marketing and intro to graphic design. So it really spans really a range of topics. And so our faculty portal, you can find it at michelsonip.com, and it includes a range of our resources and our IP toolkit, including LMS course cartridges, PowerPoint presentations, assessment bank, and discussion questions to aid you in your teaching intellectual property. And yeah, register for free at michelsonip.com, and you can also reach out to any of us for additional questions. But with that, I'll hand it back to Leah to introduce our faculty partners at Santa Monica College.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Shalani. So yes, without further ado, I will go ahead and pass the reins over to our Santa Monica College team members. We're going to hear a little bit about their experience with not only helping to create the course, but also how it worked in their classes that they've been using the course material in. So Dana, I'm going to go ahead and make you the presenter now. And then Dana, you should be able to share your screen now.
Yeah, click show my screen.
Oh. Next slide.
Yeah, it's right there. Yeah.
Okay.
That's
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm Dana Nasser, and I teach business law as well as administration of justice, and I'm also the incoming curriculum chair at SMC. And Nathan Khalil is also a business law professor. I'll let you tell a little bit about yourself as well.
sure. Can you hear us okay?
Yep.
Okay, great. So yeah, as Dana mentioned, my name is Nathan Khalil. I've been teaching here at Santa Monica College for about 4 years now. My background is that my undergraduate degree is in engineering. I did law school on the East Coast, where I joined a couple of law firms, first Penny and Edmonds, and then later Jones Day, both large firms. And my primary focus and practice was in IP law, and within that focused on patent law. And we have been, and thank you again all for joining. We're happy to have you. We started this collaboration with Michelson, the Michelson Foundation and NACI a few years back, and it was sort of perfect timing for all of us. As we were growing our entrepreneurship program, the chair of our department saw a need to add IP education into the curriculum, and NACI and Michelson were doing the same thing at about the same time. So it's been great. I'll talk a little bit first about why students are taking this course, why they're signing up. But just to really briefly mention and take a step back, the Michelson materials, their free book and their videos are really what makes this class sort of dynamic for the students. But we'll come back to that and see examples of it. Echoing a little bit of what Jelani talked about, the reason, so we do have this education gap. A lot of people don't think about it. As a former practicing IP attorney, I would hear these stories all the time. I still hear them today as a professor of a student becoming a professional, doing all the right things, whether it's someone who's an entrepreneur, who has built a great business from the ground, has done all the difficult things it takes to get that going, or it could be someone who's, is practicing in the gig economy. It could be a graphic artist or something like that, doing everything right, only for this intellectual property challenge to be the obstacle. And oftentimes when they come to me as an attorney or to an IP attorney, it's often too late. They've already made sort of a big mistake, unknowingly, unwittingly. So either missing the opportunity to procure and protect their own hard work that they've spent developing over a great deal of time, or by unwittingly infringing someone else's intellectual property. So it can be a deal breaker for a lot of our graduates, and so that's really where we're coming from. But I'll let the students speak for themselves. So what I've done is, we're obviously not going to go through these, maybe we'll go through a select few. I've sort of taken excerpts from students who have posted in our discussion boards in our online intellectual property class. Dana will talk about that in a minute. She's the one who put it through curriculum. We have had 2 iterations of this class so far, and I have to say, I teach business law, administration of justice, intellectual property, law for the entrepreneur, advanced business law, and this one might be the one for which students are most naturally engaged, because oftentimes they're sort of already coming in with some direction. So let me see if I can zoom in here. Okay, so here we have a photographer who likes to take photography in nature, and he wants to protect his images online. Here we have a game producer, right, who's interested. Someone who's in music over here wants to talk about protecting their IP. Here we have someone who's wanting to pursue her lifelong dream of building a business, and wants to learn about how to protect herself. Here's someone who's coming in specifically for trademarking their logo. So I mean, you can sort of look at these later, but you can see that people hail from sort of different backgrounds and have different interests in terms of what they want to get out of this class. But often it's either an entrepreneur or someone who works in some sort of creative endeavor. And again, this gig economy where people are going from project to project, they're sort of left to their own devices. to protect themselves and to best protect their hardware. So classes are full. They're really, students in these classes are very engaged. And we'll talk a little bit more about what our shell looks like, how we've implemented it online, and a little bit on ground, and how you might be able to use it in your course, even if it's not a law class, especially if it's not a law class, the way you can use it simply, even not being an expert in the field. But I'll pass it back to Dana to talk about the curriculum process.
So yes, thank you, Nathan. So it's very exciting to actually have a 3-unit intellectual property standalone course. And we're very grateful to the Michelson Foundation for basically allowing us to have all these great materials and interactive textbook, the videos, basically, and other instructor resources that students don't even have to buy the book. So it's basically OER, which is very, very wonderful, especially with the high quality of all these materials. So we're happy to share that course outline, which includes, of course, the SLO's course objectives and sample assignments. And as Nathan had indicated, we're already having a lot of demand for the standalone intellectual property course. So really excited to be able to introduce a whole course dedicated to this. In addition, we have a 1-unit intellectual property course for those that maybe just want to get a glimpse of intellectual property, but don't want to commit themselves to a 3-unit course. Again, happy to share that course outline. And we've also been teaching intellectual property for the entrepreneur, which touches on many different topics relevant to entrepreneurs, as well as incorporating 20% intellectual property into the course. And I noticed that some of you, when I looked at the attendees information, I see that some of you actually don't teach just a law course necessarily, may teach a business course or an entrepreneurial course. And we will be talking about later on how you can just use a small module, just maybe like what we call intellectual property light, and sort of use that as part of your course. Maybe you're only dedicating a small portion of your time to it, but at least it would give students the opportunity to have exposure to these great resources. So we do want to continue to talk to you about this project from the curriculum standpoint as well. So I'm going to now turn it back to Nathan to talk specifically about how his best practices for teaching IP in his standalone IP course.
Thanks, Dana. So yeah, and I can't find it right now, but one of these comments I included in here specifically for that reason. One of the students says, thanks for the free materials. And we hear that all the time, right, from students who can save a few bucks by not having to buy a $100 textbook. That's great for them. And then for some students in our populations, it's the difference between being able to take a class and not. So that's a huge plus for our students and a draw. And thanks to Michelson for that. Okay, just trying to pull up this. There we are. Okay. Okay, so we should be inside my shell, my IP shell. Do you see that up at the top, business 9?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Okay, so this is the shell that we put together for our standalone online 3-unit intellectual property course. As Dana mentioned, a lot of the other uses are just sort of dropping some segments of this into an existing class. One of the great things about the Michelson materials is that we have videos. So for those of us who teach online and on ground, we probably know that there's a challenge online sort of matching the experience of the classroom in terms of it being dynamic and engaging, etc. So what these videos do is help us really bridge that gap with virtually no effort. We have in the IP class 38 different modules. just going down below. Or I should say 38 different sections, and those are based on the videos and the topics in the videos put forth by Michelson, but I'll come back to that in a second. We have some information, some basic information that you would always have in your course shells. And then we sort of have this little bit of what is IP, right? And why should I care about IP? And that's where we sort of start with some of that. And I think there may have been a few people here that were interested in the makerspace. So even though we're going to be talking mostly about how to implement these, or how we've implemented these materials in our classes, there's been a lot of conversation and uncertainty in the makerspace about if a student is in a makerspace working with other students and they come up with some sort of innovation, who owns the IP to that invention? Is it one of the students? Is it a combination of the students? Is it the entity that's putting up the space, if it's a college or something like that? What is the teachers or the guide's role? So it's very sort of an unsettled area of law, but it's something that can always be delineated. But in any event, these videos are still helpful for getting students to start thinking about those things down the road, a step beyond just what their idea is and how to move that forward. All right, so I'll just show you, for example, I know you can't hear it, but I'm going to show you the very first video that the Michelson Foundation has, and this is what we start each of our little sub-sessions with.
Do patents promote innovation or hold it back? This question has been debated for 150
I know you can't hear this, but basically there's someone narrating,
in the first place?
and he's talking about sort of
the American Industrial Revolution,
what's already in the book, sort of the highlights from the book. So this runs largely parallel
and Thomas
with
Edison
the book.
were all driven
These are all about
primarily
5 to 10 minutes long,
from their discoveries.
and
Those
they're all sort of
discoveries
animated like this. They're bringing real life examples.
Century.
So they're really great at sort of
What about now? Over the
starting
last
with the
50
big picture.
years, economists have repeatedly demonstrated that patents continue to foster innovation by incentivizing and
Hi, Nathan.
Let us
We
be
actually
clear.
hear the video.
the thing about patents is that they not only
Sorry?
We can hear the video, just to let you know.
Oh, you
Oh,
can?
wonderful.
Okay. In that case, I'll let it play through for a couple minutes so it can speak for itself.
Okay.
stimulate innovation, they also promote knowledge sharing afterwards. This seems to go against the fact that patents give their owners a temporary monopoly over the invention. But it's actually true. Patents are one of the most effective tools for knowledge sharing ever invented. A simple thought experiment suggests why this is so. Imagine a world in which there were no patents to guarantee inventors the rights to their discoveries. In such a world, inventors would need to be very secretive, since competitors could copy their discoveries with impunity. That's the world of trade secrets. But in a world of patents, the situation is just the opposite. Inventors now feel free to promote their discoveries as widely as possible in order to maximize the profits from commercializing them, secure in the knowledge their rights are protected. Moreover, to get a patent, the law requires that the inventor disclose the details of his or her invention. This also promotes knowledge sharing. In fact, the US Patent Database is the greatest library of technical knowledge on the planet, and it's open to anyone who wants to study it. Thomas Edison, for one, used to hang out at the patent office to study other inventors' patents and hopefully spark ideas of his own. The same is true of many inventors today. In fact, one recent survey found that 88% of US and European companies say they rely on the information disclosed in patents to keep up with technology advances in their industries. Take the smartphone industry in particular. This industry brings together in one amazing device the combined technical advances of 4 major industries: mobile telephony, electronics, computing, and software. Does anyone believe such technological collaboration could happen under a trade secret regime? Impossible. Only patents let companies feel secure in licensing and cross-licensing their inventions to each other. And as a result, smartphone use has grown exponentially in only 1 decade, from 0 to over 2 billion users worldwide. Do patents stimulate innovation? It's patently obvious.
Okay, so there you see an example of a video that they have, and this can be used in so many different ways, whether online or in the classroom. So if you're sort of someone who's already teaching law, and I know some people are, what you can do is, for example, if you're on ground, you show that video, and that can sort of launch the conversation, and then you can go to whatever your lecture is going to be or whatever your discussion is going to be. And what this does is it breaks it up, right? And introduces each topic. So that's worked out really well in my Law for the Entrepreneur class. When we get to the IP portion, after we've been discussing employment law and contracts, this really sort of wakes them up in the classroom. So it's a great springboard if you're someone who is a law teacher and want to delve more deeply. On the other end of the spectrum, if you're someone who's not a lawyer and don't feel like you want to or can get into depth with these materials, well, they can stand on their own. You can literally show a few of these videos, and that could be the extent that you cover it in that particular class, and maybe that's good enough. That gives them a little bit of exposure, starts getting them thinking about, oh, what is a copyright? Oh, what is a trademark? Oh, what is a patent? If I'm going to come up with a logo, I need to start thinking about these other features that should go into that logo. I need to think about how I can sort of protect it. So at least that opens their mind to it, and then if they want to learn more about it, they can. For the online environment, you see that even more, or these have even more value, right? Usually we're sort of limited online to occasionally showing a lecture video, discussion boards, which are great and they have their place. But this really sort of makes it three-dimensional for the students. So what we've done in this IP course shell, we started off each topic with the Michelson video lecture. We have PowerPoints that Dana here prepared. And then we have supplemental material in different places where we think we can sort of add value. So sometimes that's just an article like this one which discusses sort of the impact of IP on the economy, etc. And then a lot more practical stuff. So if we scroll down, for example, let's see. So let's go down to trademarks.
Sound marks, it's interesting. Sound marks is very interesting if they have them.
Sure, oh, for the video?
Sure.
Okay, so for example, here, so trademark subject matter, right? What's eligible for trademarks? There's the video, there's the PowerPoint. We have discussion boards for a lot of these, which we'll look at a couple of examples of. So here, for example, we have this, oh, doesn't want to take this link. Okay, our system's preventing us from taking there, but it takes you straight to the USPTO website and sort of tells the individual, how do I start this as a practical matter if I want to get register my own trademark, and if I don't have $30,000 for a lawyer, $10,000 for a lawyer, how can I start to do this myself? Yeah.
I don't know if that will come up with trademark sound mark examples. Is fun.
What is that? Here.
Nope, doesn't want to say. Nope. Okay. Okay. Doesn't want to cooperate with us today.
Doesn't want to cooperate. Okay, so why don't we go ahead and look at a piece of another video, and then we'll look at the ensuing discussion board.
What is the purpose of the distinctiveness requirement for trademarks? The fundamental requirement for a trademark is distinctiveness. This requirement is analogous to the requirement for novelty in patent rights and originality in copyright. Without distinctiveness, there can be no trademark. As Miller and Davis note, naturally, a trademark must be distinctive if it is to serve the function of identifying the origin of goods and thereby avoid confusion, deception, or mistake. If a trademark is to protect purchasers from confusion over what they are purchasing, then the trademark somehow must be recognizable, identifiable, and different from other marks. Some trade and service marks achieve distinction via their inherent nature. Nike's curved swoosh checkmark suggesting speed and agility, for example. But other marks gain distinctiveness as a result of marketing, forming a powerful association over time in the minds of consumers. For example, the term Raisin Bran is merely descriptive of the cereal and would not be eligible for trademark registration had Kellogg Company not demonstrated through evidence of use, including sales, advertising expenditures, and consumer surveys, that the buying public had come to associate Raisin Bran with this particular Kellogg cereal. The public's distinct association of a trademark with a company is known as secondary meaning, and it can only be established over time. How is distinctiveness determined? In the 1976 case, Abercrombie & Fitch Company versus Hunting World, Inc., Judge Henry Jacob Friendly established a 5-category spectrum of distinctiveness: fanciful marks, arbitrary marks, suggestive marks, descriptive marks, and generic marks. Judge Friendly's spectrum ranges from words and symbols invented solely to distinguish a product or vendor to words and symbols common enough to be ineligible for trademark protection. Fanciful marks are invented words, symbols, or devices that have no relation to the good or service being sold and have no meaning other than to distinctly identify the product or service and distinguish it from those of any other vendor. Some examples of fanciful marks are Xerox, Google, and Kodak. Fanciful marks are considered the strongest type of mark and are automatically registrable with the USPTO.
Okay, so if you're someone who has a law background, you kind of already know that. If you're not, you've already sort of picked up a really valuable piece of information, which is depending on what name I choose for my company or for my logo or however I brand myself, should be informed in part by whether I can get protection for this, right? So those fanciful names like Google and Xerox are more likely to be able to get more trademark protection and more quickly. So for the online course, we have prepared discussion board questions for various topics, sort of in lockstep with the weeks. We're happy to share any of these questions that anyone may want, or all of them if you want to do a full class. But let's pull this up here. Okay, so here's an example. Each discussion board has 3 questions. Sometimes they're theoretical. Sometimes they're sort of hypotheticals, right? So if you look at this, this first one, we look at 2 companies who have a similar name in different locations, and we pose the question, is someone infringing on someone else's trademark? So if I'm coming up with a new company or logo here in LA, do I need to search the USPTO website? Do I need to Google? Do I need to do all these things to make sure that someone else out there doesn't already have this trademark? Just because I haven't seen it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. This happened actually to a friend of mine. She is very sophisticated. She started her own business a couple of years ago. She planned it well. She designed it well. She got off the ground very quickly in the marketplace. She did a search at the USPTO website where the registered trademarks are, and didn't find any sort of name that was similar to her company's name. And months later, she got a cease and desist letter from someone else on the East Coast who's using a similar name in a similar type of business. And they're telling her, you need to stop with this name, cut it out right away, come up with a new name, get rid of all your stuff. Of course, she doesn't want to do that. She already has a bunch of clients who know her under this company name. She spent a bunch of money developing the stuff, putting all the stuff on letterhead, etc. So she doesn't want to do that. And she called me and said, how could this happen? I searched the USPTO website. And the answer is you can get a trademark without registering, which means you have to be concerned about other people using certain names that you might infringe, for example. So that's an example of a practical one. If you look at this one, we talk a little bit about inherent distinction to get students starting to think about what we just saw with that Google example when they're deciding on sort of a company name. So any other main highlights when you think of this, Dan?
I think that's pretty much touches on a lot of different materials. And just to note that we have different levels, or we have an intellectual property full standing course module that plugs and plays well with Canvas, where if somebody's teaching, can get the full course, or a lighter course if they just want to sort of embed this into a Business One course, for example. And maybe we could take a look at that. Some screenshots if we want to go back to the slides that we have there.
So if you just,
Okay.
turn it up.
Okay. So it's really, the course is designed, we already have built these out to make it easy really to run the course without a tremendous amount of effort in terms of building the shells. We already have all the resources and many different options depending on what people teach. And so I wanted just to show you here. Let's see.
If you scroll down, it should be at the end.
Okay, there we go. So here's an example of, for example, let's say that you teach Business One and you don't want to teach a full 3-unit IP course. This is sort of a screenshot. Let's see here, let me go a little bit more. This is from a different one, okay. From Introduction to Business. And so this is basically showing the weeks. It's a 6-week course, and the example that we're showing in, you can see here, and this was very nice of our chair to show a screenshot of this. So it's an Introduction to Business One. You'll see there's 6 weeks. And then at the end, you'll see an intellectual property reference. So there's a standalone module that's embedded into this full-length course, because you may only want to cover a little bit of intellectual property, because you have so many other, let's say, topics to cover. So here's an example of what that might look like in the course calendar. And then moving down, you can see here how the different topics within the intellectual property module. And it's basically very short, just looks at the 4 different types. And again, meant to be sort of an overview of patents, copyrights, trademarks, and trade secrets. And we do have this available if somebody would like to embed this into, I don't know if it's a design course, if it's an entrepreneurship course, maybe a business, another kind of business course, or marketing perhaps. And again, one thing also that we're looking for is to help people to sort of help you with the design of your courses so that they will fit a particular discipline. For example, you might want to emphasize copyrights, for example, in photo. So please let us know. We're looking to help people with that. And since my background is curriculum, I'm also very much looking forward to helping develop more courses. So if you look at that, you can see the different topics within the embedded module. And then here's an example of the patent coverage, where there's the learning objectives. We embed the video that you'd seen earlier that Nathan had shown, and that's just a little screenshot of that. And then here's an example of an assignment. And we do have assignments as well that you can give into an Introduction to Business course, where we ask the students to pretend that they just started a new business and they make it up, and then they survey what types of subject matter would need intellectual property, and we have them watch the videos, and then they can go ahead and apply their knowledge. And actually, I've assigned this on my business law course. I have a module about this size in that course as well, because there's so much to cover in business law. I know that I think there's at least one attendee who teaches that course as well. And the feedback from the students has been phenomenal because they really enjoy watching the videos. I think nowadays students are used to going onto YouTube and trying to figure out how to do something or solve a problem. And I find that these videos are just the perfect amount of time. So I've had nothing but really very, very positive feedback. So, so that's sort of a little snapshot of what how you might embed just the IP, a small portion of IP into a larger course to give them that exposure.
And just to be clear, so this is a sample from the chair of our department, from his shell that he uses in his introduction to business class, as Dana mentioned. Dana and I are lawyers, but he's not. And he doesn't know a whole ton about this stuff, but he doesn't need to for his class because of the videos. So if you're someone, and I know there's a few lawyers on the call and law teachers who can use these materials more in depth, but if you're someone else who wants to, is considering or who's thinking, I have this class, I know my students need to know about this stuff, but I don't know anything about this stuff, you don't have to. All you got to do is ask for the IP light shell. You can pop it into your Canvas shell, just add water and go.
Right, right. And also just even if you have, for example, working with students who are developing products, I think some of you are doing that, and you just want to be able to give them some information. I mean, these are great little videos to help people, inventors and so forth.
Yeah, no, great point. I mean, if you're in a makerspace, for example, you can direct your students to these videos, and again, they can start to sort of think about some of this stuff. I had a student come to me a couple of weeks ago, not one of my students. He's in the business department, and he's been winning competitions for his innovation. He's been pitching. He's been going around. What he didn't realize is that by virtue of presenting details about this invention, he may be barring himself from getting a patent if enough time totals. So that's an example. If someone had watched these, if he had watched these videos, he would have been aware of that before he started and could have taken more timely steps to protect himself.
Yes, so arming our students with this knowledge is really, really important, particularly if we're in that space, if you have in the business arena somehow. This may be a good time to go to questions. Leah, did you want to open it up?
Sure. Yeah, that would be great. So 2 questions to kind of start us off, and just to remind people, you can submit your questions via the questions feature or the chat feature. But one question came in, is this available for just to your institutions or also for your institutions as well? So if you guys could just expand on that, that would be great.
As far as I know, this should be available to 2- and 4-year institutions, absolutely.
Yes, absolutely available for 2- and 4-year institutions, for makerspaces, small business development centers, incubators, accelerators.
Awesome.
For example, we also have other full courses built out at other institutions, like USC has a full course, The Entrepreneur's Guide to Intellectual Property. But yeah, very, very openly available.
Awesome. And Jelani, would you just tell folks, I know you mentioned michelsonip.com, but could you just mention again kind of what the steps are to sign up for that?
Absolutely. So you can get access to our educator portal. Just visit michelsonip.com/teachip, and you can sign up there. It's just a short form for you to log in and get access.
Okay, awesome. And is there any sort of delay in that? Do you guys have to approve folks, or how does that work?
Yes, there will be a slight delay, generally less than a few hours, just for us to ensure that you are who you say you are, and that it's faculty looking to access the portal.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. And then for Dana and Nathan, obviously you guys have been, immersed in this for the past 2 to 3 years, but for someone that maybe is just new and listening to this webinar for the first time and hearing about michelsonip.com, I'm wondering from in your opinions, what would you say would be besides signing up on the educator portal, what would be kind of your next step?
Well, I definitely would do that, as well as I believe that there will be follow-up sessions and opportunities for us to work with faculty. We would like to, we know, and not just faculty, we know that there are a myriad of backgrounds here and people that have different objectives, so we're happy to help you. Build or select which course might be right, or what information or resources. So please do feel free to reach out to us as well. And again, to look for some follow-up opportunities or sessions.
Okay, excellent.
And to add to that, generally speaking, if you're someone who wants to incorporate this stuff and you start to, whether before or during, we're always around. So if you have any questions for us specifically about something you're working on, by all means, feel free to email us or pick up the phone.
Okay, excellent. And just so listeners know, we'll be sure to include their contact information so that you have that if you have any follow-up questions after this as well too. Okay, well, we don't have any other questions come in so far. So Dana and Nathan, were you done with your portion so far?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So I just want to give Jelani and all of our presenters just a chance to share any last words with our attendees. And if none, I'll go ahead and close out the webinar, but just wanted to give everyone a chance to say their last words here.
Sure. Thank you, Leah, again so much for this opportunity. NACCE has been such a deep supporter of ours from the beginning, as well as SMC in helping us bring fundamental IP education to community colleges and beyond. So thanks so much for your support. And anyone that's joined us on the line today, you can reach me at Jelani at 20mm.org. My information will also be on the slides that you'll have access to afterwards.
Excellent. Dana, Nathan, did you have anything else you wanted to say?
Yes, and also happy to share our course outlines for the standalone IP course, as well as the 1-unit course and Law for the Entrepreneur. If anybody wants any more information or help with that, feel free to reach out to us.
Perfect. Okay, well, great. Well, thank you again to everyone that attended. A special thank you to all of our presenters on the call today. We really hope that this was valuable information to the listeners, and we hope that you'll take advantage of this amazing open education resource. So with that being said, enjoy the rest of your afternoons, and this webinar is now complete.